A man stands in a Warsaw street waiting to be caught. He isn't hiding, he isn't running. He's standing in the open, in the middle of a Nazi roundup, letting the soldiers see him. Within minutes, rifle butts slam into his back and he's thrown onto a truck full of terrified prisoners. But this man isn't afraid. He planned every second of it. He wasn't ordered to go, he volunteered. His name was Witold Pilecki, and he had just chosen to enter the most terrifying place on earth, Auschwitz. No military manual had prepared anyone for a mission like this. Yet, by late 1940, rumors were leaking out of a new camp in occupied Poland. Whispers of mass death, disappearances, and unspeakable cruelty. But rumors weren't proof. The Polish resistance needed something the world could not ignore. Hard intelligence gathered from inside the wire by someone willing to become a prisoner on purpose. Pilecki was a Polish army officer and resistance fighter. He already knew what the Nazis were capable of. Believing someone had to witness the truth from inside, he asked for permission to be arrested on purpose. It was, by any military logic, a suicide mission. Almost everyone who entered that place was trying to survive. Pilecki was trying to build an army. On September 19th, 1940, he walked into that Warsaw roundup wearing someone else's identity papers, a name that wasn't his, a past invented to survive interrogation. Within days, he was crammed into a cattle car with hundreds of other men rolling toward a destination the outside world barely understood. There was no guarantee he would survive the journey, let alone complete his mission. He arrived at the camp beaten, tattooed with a number instead of a name, and thrown into a world designed to completely erase him. The reality inside those walls was worse than any rumor. Prisoners were worked past exhaustion on starvation rations. Guards beat men to death for sport. Disease tore through the barracks. Executions were routine, public, and deliberately brutal, a warning system built entirely from human suffering. Pilecki watched friends die of typhus. He watched men shot for stumbling. Every beating, every execution, every death became evidence, because if he ever escaped, the world would finally know what was happening behind the barbed wire. Most people spent every waking hour trying to stay alive. Pilecki started building a resistance. Quietly, carefully, he recruited fellow prisoners he could trust, men willing to risk torture and execution for the slimmest chance of resistance. He called it the Union of Military Organizations. If the SS discovered it, everyone involved would be executed. Every recruitment was a gamble. One wrong choice, one informant in the wrong barrack, and the entire network could be exposed and destroyed in a single afternoon. Pilecki built his organization in total secrecy, cell by cell, so that no single capture could unravel it all. Then came the hardest part, getting the truth past the wire. Reports were written in tiny coded handwriting and hidden inside clothing. Others were carried by escapees or passed to civilians working near the camp. Each report was a small miracle of coordination, and each one carried the weight of everything happening inside those walls. What those documents revealed was staggering. They documented the systematic starvation and murder of prisoners. They exposed the camp's expanding purpose, from a prison for Polish resistance members into a machine of industrial-scale extermination. Pilecki's reports were among the earliest detailed accounts to reach the underground, describing execution methods, prisoner numbers, and the horrifying shift toward mass killing that would come to define the Holocaust. This wasn't hearsay anymore. It was evidence, written from inside the machine itself. The information moved from the Polish resistance to the government in exile in London, and from there in fragments toward Allied intelligence circles. And still, almost nothing changed. The camp continued to grow. By 1943, after nearly 3 years inside, 3 years longer than almost anyone believed possible, the network was compromised. One by one, members of the network began disappearing. The Gestapo was closing in. Waiting any longer meant certain capture, so Pilecki made one final decision. He would escape. During a night shift at an outside bakery detail, Pilecki and 2 other prisoners overpowered a guard, cut communication lines, and vanished into the darkness beyond the fence. It was audacious, dangerous, and successful. The mission was over, but the hardest part was about to begin, convincing the world to believe him. Pilecki escaped Auschwitz alive, but his mission was far from over. He rejoined the resistance and kept pushing his reports up the chain, hoping that first-hand testimony from a man who had lived it would finally force action. It didn't happen the way he hoped. The reports reached London, they reached Allied intelligence, but no rescue came. Historians still debate why. Wartime priorities, limited verification, and the sheer scale of the conflict all played a role. Whatever the reason, Auschwitz remained open. The camp continued operating for 2 more years. Thousands more would die before it was finally liberated. His warnings had reached the outside world, but they were not enough to change the camp's fate. But his story didn't end with the war. It ended somewhere far more tragic. After surviving the camp, fighting in the Warsaw Uprising, and enduring a German POW camp, Pilecki returned to a Poland that was no longer free. The Nazis were gone, replaced by a Soviet-backed communist government that saw men like him not as heroes, but as threats. He kept working in secret, gathering intelligence again, this time against the new regime. Once again, he chose resistance over safety, and in 1947, he was arrested by communist secret police. What followed was a campaign of torture and a show trial built on fabricated charges. The man who had documented the truth of Auschwitz for the world was now being erased by his own country's new rulers. On May 25, 1948, Witold Pilecki was executed by firing squad. He was 47 years old. His body was never found. For decades, his name was erased from history, his mission scrubbed from official records because the truth of his heroism was inconvenient to the new regime in power. It wasn't until after the fall of communism in Poland that his story resurfaced. Pieced together from surviving reports, testimonies, and the memories of those who had known him, today he is remembered as one of the only people to voluntarily enter Auschwitz to gather intelligence, and one of the very few to escape alive. He didn't do it for fame. He didn't do it for recognition. He believed that if the truth escaped the camp, humanity would act. History proved him only partly right. His warnings couldn't stop Auschwitz, but they ensured the world could never say it didn't know. Witold Pilecki walked into hell so the truth could find its way back out.